Legend, welcome back to another episode of the Ruck Infringement Podcast. Of course, this is one of our special podcast interviews. I'm your host, Joey, as always, and joining me this week, Queensland Origin legend, St George legend, Mark Coyne. Mark, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Joe. Good to be on the show, mate.
It is a pleasure to have you on, mate. Let's get straight into it. Now, for those who don't know you, who is Mark Coyne?
Oh, so that's a big question, isn't it? I'm originally a Brisbane boy, so yeah, I grew up sort of in the south of Brisbane, a suburb called Sunnybank. I'm the
Yeah.
youngest of four kids, two older brothers who sort of got me into rugby league. So that's how I sort of started my career playing for the Sunnybank Magpies. And then sort of ended up playing for a club called Brothers in Brisbane, which was the other side of town, weirdly enough. But I played there, and that's when the Dragons came looking at some players, and thankfully they signed me up, and I moved to Sydney right back in 1980, end of '87, and been here ever since, and obviously had a bit of fun playing for the Dragons.
Yeah, great, mate. That's awesome. Now, was it always rugby league for you, or was there another sport on your radar when you were young?
No, I was pretty much rugby league, Joey, but I did have a couple
Yeah.
of years when I under 13s and under 14s I went and played rugby union. So
Oh, yeah, nice.
I did change codes, but I played under 13s. I broke my left shoulder, and under 14s I broke my right shoulder.
Ouch.
So I thought rugby wasn't really the game for me. So after being barred from my parents to playing contact sport, I used to sneak out back down to the Sunnybank Magpies League at under 15s, and it was about 5 games before they found out that I was playing. So I got a little bit of trouble, but they let me play on, which was good.
That's great, mate. Now, you talked about the Sunnybank Magpies there, and of course, brothers in Brisbane. But let's talk about your debut for St George. What was that like, and were you extremely nervous?
Oh yeah, very very nervous. I was nervous to sort of going into first grade. I had a bit of first grade experience because before I came down to play at the Dragons, I did play in the sort of the Winfield Cup Grand Final with brothers in
Yeah.
first grade. I think I played the last 7 games, which included the finals, and then ultimately winning the grand final. So I had a bit of experience, but yeah, coming
Mm.
down here, it was pretty nerve wracking that first game. And I remember, I think we were playing Balmain, my first game, and they were going really well. It was at Cogra Oval, and back then, they didn't have a great drainage of the fields, and we virtually had really, really heavy rain. And I remember I was on the wing, and Craig Young, who was the coach, was very big on trying to toughen me up. So he used to make me do the winger in on a tap. And so I was running into Steve Roach, Sirenen,
Oh
all those
gosh.
guys. And I remember my first touch, I had it was winger in, and I nearly drowned because the ground was underwater, and I got hit by those guys, and they were all over me, and I could hardly breathe. So that was my sort of my start in first grade. But thankfully, when we actually went on and won that game, which was a good win for the Dragons, given that the Tigers were going pretty well in the in the late '80s. So yeah, ended up being a good result. Got my win up, and then yeah, just sort of kicked on from there.
Yeah, that's great, mate. Look, very unlucky to run into Blocker and Ciro. But let's talk about in footy circles. Everyone has a nickname. What was yours, mate?
Oh, pretty much just always Coiny. So I'd
Yeah.
always sort of cop that. I did have a period where Corey Pearson and Nathan Brown. I think I went to training one morning, and I just sort of got out of bed, turned up at training. I had a haircut the day before, so I had like the mad bowl going on. So they started calling me Lloydie Christmas from Dumb and Dumber. So
Yeah.
those two guys have always called me Lloydie Christmas, and a few other guys have sort of picked up on it, but not too many. But yeah, basically it was really corny. But then I had a little period where Brownie and Corey Pearson used to call me Lloydie Christmas.
That's a good one, mate. We definitely have not had that one. So that is awesome. Look, when you were playing, were you superstitious or did you have any teammates that were superstitious at all?
No, not really. I think I was sort of superstitious just around the speedos that I wore. So I
Mm.
always, tried to wear the same speedos. I used that one pair throughout the whole year. That's probably the only sort of superstition I had. I didn't have many others. I'm sure there was other superstitions that players have, but mate, Joe, it was so long ago. It's actually hard to remember. Probably, I remember guys like Alan Langer because I played a few Origin games with him, and he used to just like dry heave right before the
Yes.
game, and nearly made all the other players throw up as well because he was just in the dressing room like dry heaving before the games, and it was a bit off-putting to tell the truth, but that's Alf.
Yeah, I've heard a few of the old Origin Queensland boys tell me that. So yeah, it's well, Alfie's one of a kind. But mate, let's talk about footy when you were growing up. Who was your footy idol?
I probably had a couple, Joe. I really like because I sort of grew up in the south of Sydney. I followed
Yeah.
sort of the South team, and Mal Mening was always someone that I looked up to.
Oh yeah, for
You know,
sure.
he was a great player, and then obviously when sort of State of Origin sort of kick started, and we had a pretty strong team. It was probably Wally Lewis. Wally Lewis obviously was the guy that everyone in Queensland loved because he just made us starting to win the State of Origin matches. So probably those two. It's hard to go past them, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's talk about playing for that great St George team. What was that like?
It was pretty special, albeit, we never actually, won a flag,
Hmm.
during my time there. I think, I played in 3 grand finals and I didn't
Yeah,
play in the last one because I was injured when it was a joint venture year. But no, we had great success taking away, not getting to hold the cup up. We had great success and won more games than we lost. And, it was it was a really good journey, Joey, because when I got there, St George hadn't been going very well. There'd been a few
yeah,
years since they played semis, and then we sort of got Brian Smith in, and Brian Smith in brought a lot of discipline and a different way of preparing for games and doing things. And we sort of had a really nice journey under Brian Smith. He was really good for the club. He brought some good
mm,
players in, and he made probably guys like me that were probably just basic players better players. And I'll really give Brian a lot of credit for how we changed the Dragons and the culture, and we had, and again, whilst we didn't win the flag, we had some great successes, and getting to play in 3 grand finals was pretty special during those 90s.
yeah, absolutely. And that club before the merge had such a strong heritage. Won won 11 in a row, like back in the 60s and 70s. So incredible team. Mate, we moved from there into the rep arena. Now let's talk about Origin. Of course, you are known for the miracle try, but let's just start off first with that Origin debut. What was that like going into what they call the cauldron?
Yeah, it was it was a weird experience for me because I got drafted in as the 18th man back in 1990, and
Yeah.
the reason I got drafted in was because Wally Lewis had a strained hamstring. So I was sort of sitting in, I was actually watching Wally do a fitness test up and down the hallway of the travel lodge, and it was hard to know what I wanted to think because obviously if he got ruled out, I was going in, but I love Wally and I wanted him to play, so
Of
it was a
course.
bit of a tricky for me, but ultimately he got ruled out. Then I came into the team just on the bench, and then I think the next game Wally played, so I actually got to play Origin with Wally, which is just a real dream come true to think that I got to play State of Origin with Wally Lewis, and yeah, so obviously really nervous, during that, but you have really good teammates around you, and you just sort of go out there and you just you take one step at a time, I suppose. And the one thing I do remember, Joe, is just how fast that game is. Like, there's just
Mm,
the speed is just unbelievable. I'm sure you've talked to other players that talk about the
yeah.
speed of the game, man. It is. It's just bonkers, like how fast that game is from the first minute you set foot on the field to the 80th minute. It just does not stop. And that was probably the thing that stood out to me the most was how fast the game was.
I think, yeah, the biggest thing that players have told me, the speed, but also the physicality. It was a big step up from your NRL games. So, yeah, mate, look, great to hear. Now, I don't have this question in, but let's talk about that miracle try. Now, the Ray Warren commentary was absolutely incredible. Of course, you finished it off for them. You also started it as well, playing the ball to Mal. But mate, just take us through that whole sequence and what happened, and yeah, if you can.
Well, mate, while I do that, weirdly enough, I've never pulled my jersey out, but we're doing some renovations at the moment. So I've actually got the
Oh
jersey here. I
wow,
haven't
look at
I actually
that!
haven't got it out. Hasn't been out of the cupboard for about probably 20-25 years, I reckon. So that's the actual
Wow,
jersey I wore, and I'm gonna donate it to the QRL. They're gonna put it up in their museum
lovely.
up there. So that's why I sort of dragged it out. But yeah, it was obviously pretty special. I, as you said, played the ball, and as the ball sort of went over to to the left-hand side of the field. And once Steve, ran off, made that break, and he threw the ball back inside. I've always been a bit of because being in the centres or on the wing, you got to count numbers defensively, a fair bit. And I was saying to count the numbers, and I realised that if the ball kept coming out to me, New South Wales would run out of players. So as the ball kept coming across after the Pearl passed it inside, I thought I'm a chance here if the ball keeps coming. And eventually Mal got it, and he drew in, the last defender and gave me, a clear shot with about 10 to go. And I didn't have a lot of skills, Joey, but I had a really good right foot step. And luckily I was on the right side of the field. If I had been on the left side of the field, I would have stepped out. So I was quite fortunate to be on the right side of the field. The defenders were sort of racing over to try and get me, and obviously that suited my right foot. So I sort of snuck in, I think, between Freddie and Ben Elias and got the ball down. And mate, to this day, like I have seen, obviously I see Freddie every now and again. He still swears he should have taken my head off. He said, I should have taken your bloody head off, because every time the year comes around for Origin, I got to watch you score that bloody try. So I do feel for him, because he's obviously he's a legend player, Brad Fittler, and far better than I ever was. But he's got to suffer every year to watch me put that ball over the line when he was defending me. So I do feel a bit sorry for him. Not often, but every now and again.
That's great, mate. Look, as a New South Wales fan, even though you played for Queensland, it was hard not to admire that passage of play. Just incredible. I mean, to start, as you said, like where you guys were, you were what, 20 out from your own line, 20, 30 out from your own line, to get all the way up the field, go right across the field, as you said, to the left, and then all the way back over. It's just amazing. And I think Rabbit summed it up well as the miracle try. But no, just incredible stuff, mate. But from Origin, we move into Australian representative arena, of course. Now, tell us what it was like to play for your country, and was that the pinnacle of rugby league?
It definitely is. I mean, I think Origin's sort of probably the pinnacle in terms of how hard the game is. Like, that's just an amazing game. But in terms of sort of personal achievement, I think, playing for your country is the best thing. And looking to a degree, like I'd never dreamed that I'd play for Queensland or even the Dragons, let alone play for Australia. And, to be fair, I had a bit of luck, because that was sort of the time when the Super League war was going on, and none of the Super League players could get picked to play for Australia. So there's probably an argument there that I got in because some of those guys couldn't get selected. But in saying that, it is what it is, and I got the opportunity to put the green and gold on and played a few games, sort of firstly in Australia, and then got the opportunity to play in PNG, and then the World Cup was pretty special. To play over in the World Cup in England was a pretty amazing experience. We got to play at Wembley twice.
Yeah, wow.
Played England both times. First time in the round match they beat us, and then the next one was the grand final, the World Cup final, and we beat them in that one. So it was a pretty cool experience to play at Wembley and beat Great Britain and win the World Cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we jump into our next line of questions, let's talk about some teammates. Now, I haven't put this question in for you because I want you to think on the spot, but who was the funniest teammate that you played alongside? I know you've played alongside heaps, but can you narrow down the funniest teammate?
Oh, yeah, it's probably, as you said, he played name a lot, but I really loved Wayne Bartram. I'm not sure Wayne meant to be funny, but he was just funny because he was Wayne Bartram, and some of the stuff he said just broke us all up from time to time. But yeah, definitely Bardo was one of the special ones.
And now on the back of that, who was the strangest cat that you played with?
Oh, you probably hate me saying this, but Jamie Ainscough was a little bit different. So he came to us from Newcastle, and I think he started at West back in the day. But great, honestly, a terrific fella, and one of the great centres in the era that I played in. Jamie, he had speed to burn, but yeah, he was a bit of a strange cat, Jimmy, but really good guy. But he had a few sort of habits that are a little bit different to the rest of us, I think.
That's good. You got to have one in each club, but I love it, mate. Let's talk about your finals appearances now. Obviously, you talked about those grand finals, and we didn't win one there. But is there a finals memory that sticks out for you the most in your mind?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I mean, people often ask what my best memory is, and everyone will immediately thinks it's that that try that I scored for Queensland, but it's actually not. It was when back in 1996, and in the preseason we we virtually lost all of our players. So I think I went into training and we didn't have a coach
Wow.
because Rod Reddy had quit because he was going to
Mm,
South Australia for the Super League club. And then
yeah.
all of our players walked out and went to other clubs. And I think we went to training and we had like 4 players there. And this was in January before the season was starting. So we had 4 players. David Waite joined as our coach, and then all the players sort of went through the court process, and they eventually had to come back and play for us. I think Gordy was the only one that didn't come back. He decided he was going to sit the year out, which was a real shame for us because I think having him would have made a difference, in that season, particularly
Yeah.
in the grand final. But yeah, so that's my favourite memory when we beat North Sydney in the major semi-final to get to the grand final. I just couldn't believe that we actually got there because
Yeah.
going from having like 4 or 5 players in January to actually having a team and then having a team that made the grand final. So yeah, it was really when we beat North Sydney on the field. I remember I was with Mark Bell, who was sort of on the wing, the same side as me, and we just virtually hugged each other and cried because we just could not believe that we'd made it through to the grand final from where we started. And there's no doubt that's my favourite memory. Again, unfortunately, we didn't go on and
Yeah.
beat Men in the grand final, but I probably think that's my best memory of my career, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. And during those that era, the 80s and 90s, was there a team or two that were just unformidable, just teams that you guys just couldn't get around, but that were just so good?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I mean, obviously Broncos were a
Yeah.
cracking team. They had a lot of representative players. Canberra as well. I sort of feel like Canberra were our bogey team. I don't reckon we
Okay.
won many games against Canberra particularly down in Canberra. Wasn't
Yeah.
such a cold place to go down to, but Canberra were always hard and obviously a great team. Broncos sort of came through and superseded them. And then Manly became a really, really good
Mm,
team. They had a really unique defensive strategy that Bozo had taught them, and they had their halfback sort of just hanging back a little bit. Then he come into the line all the time, and yeah, it was a really, really good defensive strategy that Manly had. So yeah, probably those 3 teams are the teams that are probably really tough to crack during the era that I played.
yeah, absolutely. Now let's talk about retirement. Now, retirement for a lot of players, uh, some have struggled quite a bit. I think the NRL does really well now in helping those players. But let's talk about when you retired, mate. Did you struggle getting over that transition of that routine of daily life, and how was that to get back into every day?
I was pretty good, Joe, to tell the truth, because
Yeah,
I played 12 years down here at the Dragons, and 9 out of those 12 years I could work. So
yeah,
I had a
nice.
degree. I had a degree in business. I was working for a credit union for 9 out of the 12 years. Then I had 3 years where we went professional. Back in,
Yeah,
I think it was 97, 98, 99. So I sort of had a bit of a break from the corporate career. But then once I retired, I just sort of found my way back into in the corporate life, and I really didn't miss a beat. And in saying
that's
that, like
good.
I did find it hard, but like even though I had my degree and I had a lot of work experience, it is really hard to leave the game,
Yeah,
and the camaraderie of the people that you play with is really tough to replace in the workforce. And I admit I did struggle a little bit, but again, I was really lucky that I had a lot. I had my work experience and I had my degree, but a lot of players are probably a bit different now because
mm,
they don't really get the opportunity to study too much or get the work experience, and then they play their years and sort of you hope that they get good money out of it because obviously
yeah.
they need to yeah, it's a challenge when they come out nowadays because they don't really have the opportunity to sort of get the work experience, which makes it hard for them, I think, when they finish.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Now, after footy, did you stay involved in the game in some capacity?
Yeah, I did a bit with the game. I did judiciary for a while, and then doing the judiciary, I sort of found that there was too many of my old teammates were becoming coaches, and I was getting death stares sometimes sitting in the judiciary seat, and some of my mates who I played with were coaches now, and they were giving me the death stare. So I decided it was time to give that away. But I reckon I did that for about 7 years, and then
Yeah, nice.
I sat on the education and welfare committee for the NRL, which we were just talking a bit about, what the NRL are doing in that space now, and they're doing
Yeah,
really good work in that space. But I did that for about 10 years, and and really enjoyed that because I thought it was important that players have the opportunity to plan for life after football because
Yeah, for sure.
the average career is only about 3 years, so maybe it's a bit longer now, but it's not that great. So there's plenty of players that come into the game and they get it spat out pretty quickly, and it's important that the NRL do provide the opportunities for those guys to transition to something once the game's over for them.
Yeah, definitely, mate. Now, let's talk about the NRL currently. What is one rule that you would like to see changed in the NRL?
That's a good question. Oh God, that's a really tough question. I mean,
There's a
obviously
lot.
the game's going great. I think the rule that I don't know if it needs to be sort of questioned. I just feel that the speed of the game now is causing a lot of injuries. I just think that the
Yeah.
injuries, when we're seeing our best players, obviously, we've got Latrell out now for Origin 3. We've had
I
Munster
know.
out. Kalen Ponga's out. So I just feel that whilst the game has never been better in terms of the speed and the excitement of
Mm,
it, I do just worry that the speed of the game is causing bodies to be more fatigued and then injuries
yeah.
coming on the back of fatigue. So that's probably the one thing that I'm not saying they should get rid of it, but I think it's definitely got to be looked at. Why are all these players getting injured? We don't want our best players sitting on the sideline for a lot of the season.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy the amount of hamstring injuries we've seen this season. Just an infinite amount. I mean, it's ruined my super coach a couple of times. But let's jump into our next question. What is one piece of advice that you could give a young bloke coming through?
Oh, have a plan B. I have no doubt that whenever I talk to, I don't do much speaking anymore to younger people. But back in the day, I used to do a bit when I sort of first finished. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's definitely have a plan B because, as I said, the average career might be only 3 or 4 years now,
yeah,
and if you're one of those unlucky ones that only sort of get the average, then it means after 4 years you're out of the game, and you need to have something to do after that. Because and even if you are successful, like even I look at my career and go, I had a really good career, 12 years, and did the rep stuff and all that. But even when I came out, I still needed to have a job. Like you don't
mm,
make maybe the high end players might make enough money nowadays to invest wisely and the like, and not
yeah.
have to worry about working. But generally, the majority of players have a job when they come out of the game. So to me, that plan B is really important. Like, what are you going to do once the game's over for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Mate, what aspect of the game could the NRL improve in?
Oh, I think probably the bunker. The bunker
Yeah,
frustrates probably a lot of people. I think it
yeah,
it does have a lot of inconsistencies, and I think it does frustrate a lot of players, a lot of players and supporters, and probably old past players like me. We look at some of the decisions and go, "How the hell did they come up with that decision?" So, I
yeah,
mean, in saying that, I do appreciate it's hard, Joey, because the game's really quick, and then it
yeah,
looks a bit different when you slow it down. And
yeah,
but yeah, I
definitely.
just think that the bunker seems to be causing a lot of frustration, and it'd be nice if they could probably get a bit more accuracy around that.
Yeah, I think the interpretation needs to be black and white and not grey. I think the grey areas are what is ruining these calls and the game at the moment. But no, you're exactly right there, mate. Before we finish up, we've got 9 rounds to go until finals. Can you give us a dark horse? Who is going to take it out that people might not suspect?
Oh mate, I can't. I got to say the Dragons, haven't I? Like I've probably got a choice given that there. If they were like they were last year, mate, I wouldn't have said them. But
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
really good mate of Flano. I'm a big supporter of his,
nice.
and he's a great coach, and he's doing
Yeah,
amazing things. And whilst probably getting to a grand final might be a bit beyond them this year, I'm still going to dream, mate, and hope he can get there.
they're looking very good at the moment. Of course, everyone's got Penrith as favourites. Roosters flying at the moment. Storm up there as well. So it's going to be a great end of the year, and we'll see who takes the chocolates. But that is all we have time for on the Ruck Infringement podcast today. Thank you, Mark, for joining us. And don't forget, you can check out our sponsors. I will drop the link in the description as well. I'm Joey. That's Mark. Be good.
Thanks, mate.